Again, fine junk removal people. Here we are at episode 122 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. This is our weekly opportunity to grow, build, and expand our junk removal dream. So whether you're a landscaper, hardscaper, cleaner, junk removal, demolition, deconstruction, dumpster hauling individual, you have come to the right place to grow and expand your mind and your business. This week is a very special episode. Well, I guess they're all special. This week's a little more special because today is the first time ever I'm doing an episode by myself. So there'll be a short and sweet episode this week. I'm going to talk about a book I recently read that, of course, I conveniently left on the other side of my room, right? 10X is easier than 2X. Great book by Dan Sullivan. And what within the book resonated with me and how to apply it to junk removal. So we're going to talk about that. First, though, I want to go over this recycling weekend event that I announced last week on the show, and we've sent out invites. Maybe we put it in the Facebook group, whatever. It's available out there on the interwebs. This recycling event we're having October 25th and 26th. So today I'm going to go as long as I have content. For people who are listening live, if you want to drop in some comments, I am free to answer questions. Also, I'm standing because I do my other show standing. It allows me to project and be more engaged, and I'm excited. And so I'm standing this week. So I'm going to come across maybe louder, more elevated, more animated, more excited, all the things. So if you're listening, you're like, why is this guy all hyper? Well, that's because I'm standing. Gets the blood flowing. Also, I'm a keynote speaker by trade. That's my discipline. That's the thing I love doing. I love being in front of a live audience. So this is now my opportunity to take some of the best parts of keynoting and do it in a podcasting kind of forum. All right. So here we are. We're going to talk. That's our agenda. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to go as long as there's an audience listening and asking questions. And this is free-for-all Tuesday. It's already Tuesday because we had Labor Day Monday. All right, here we go. Let's talk about it. I got my notes over here. I'm going to butcher block to go right there so I can look right over the camera. But for now, still for now, I'm going to look over here. So this is what we're doing. Friday, October 25th, from 12 to 5. Well, let me take a step back. Recycling weekend. This is it. I bring people in my warehouse throughout the entire year. I'll do 200 plus tours, everywhere from a one-person grab lunch and enjoy each other's company, all the way up to 15 to 20 lunch and learns to open houses of 75 to 100 people. So this is what I do. This is our opportunity now to open it up to junk removal companies, independently owned junk removal companies throughout the entire country. And as I do with all my other open houses and lunch and learns, I treat my hosting. I got you, right? So come on out free of charge. You get yourself here to Milwaukee, it's on me. So I will pay for our coffee. I'll pay for lunch on Saturday. I'm buying lunch. That's it, right? I want people to recycle more. I want people to network. I want to build this junk removal junk removal industry within our country. And in order to do so, I'm going to give them myself. No different than the podcast, right? I come out of pocket for the podcast every week to build this industry. And now we're going to take this thing in person, October 25th, 26th. The whole idea behind this weekend is to come together, to network, to learn, to meet each other in person, to go over operations. Let's talk about best practices on running your overall business. And then finally, how we do things warehousing wise so that we can maximize our recycling. It's really simple. When we drive revenue, when we have the best operations, when we have a warehouse, we will recycle more. We keep more material out of the landfills, and we will identify ourselves in this industry more in the recycling world, more as an asset to the environment, less of a destructive force that landfills everything. So that's why I give my knowledge for free, whether it's here on the podcast, on YouTube, or now coming to you live in person. October 25th, we're going to kick things off noon on that Friday. Fly in. You can fly into Milwaukee. It's about 30 minutes from here. Chicago's 90 minutes from here. Fly in. Get here between 12 and 5 on Friday afternoon. This will allow us to have an open house. As people come, you'll be able to see how we run our operation. That time of year, we're probably going to be running between 4 to 6 trucks a day. You're going to see how we run box trucks and dump trucks, what it's like when the guys are coming back, what our operations is like, what is it like on a Friday afternoon with the phones, and how do we dispatch trucks? How do we route trucks for the following week? Also, the warehouse operations. How do they load material onto trucks? How do they sort it? Originally, this event was going to be Saturday only, and I thought, well, I can sit there on Saturday and explain how we load trucks, or we can have people watch us unload. And because it's 12 to 5 on Friday, you get in when you get in, whether you drive in or fly in, open house, come and go as you please. If you have to go to your Airbnb or your hotel to check in, You do you, right? You get here, you figure it out. 12 to 5 open house. From 5 to 6, we're going to do some networking introductions, get to know each other here in the warehouse so we can all come together, one central location. And then around 6 o'clock, we're going to go over to the world famous Butler Inn for a Wisconsin traditional fish fry. Keep it simple. We'll get a big table. We'll sit upstairs. We'll laugh. We'll joke. We'll eat fried food till our heart's content. And it's a Butler Inn. It's a place that I go. It's where I take people for lunch and learn. So again, as we're experiencing this, I'm giving you the same experience I give others, slightly different, being a Friday night versus a Tuesday during the day. Saturday morning, we're going to kick things off at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., we're going to go over intros. We're going to talk a little bit about our companies. The more you can share about your company, the more you're being willing to be vulnerable, the more you'll be able to connect with your other fellow attendees. So very simple things. How long you've been in business? Where are you located? How many employees? What's your revenue? What's your biggest struggle? What are you hoping to get out of this weekend? Really, those are the questions I want to talk about, right? Where's there a deficit in your company? What do you do? Actually, what do you do well in your company? And also, what do you want to get out of Saturday? Because you're making a time commitment. Forget the money, right? You already flew. You already got your hotel. You're paying for chow, right? What is your time going to be worth so that we can say by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, yep, we made mission. From there, we're going to go over to the warehouse. About 2 hours we're going to spend in our warehouse. We have 27,000 square feet on 2 acres. We will take the time necessary to go over all the warehousing operations, how we recycle and sort mattresses and clothes, ferrous and non-ferrous metal, go over our donation process, all of these things so you can start envisioning what your process is and where you want it to be. From there, we're going to come back inside. We're going to go over partners, right? What does it take? What strategic partnerships do you need so that you can have a warehouse like we have? Right now, we have around 40 vendors for all of our different types of material. So who are those partners in your local area? And we'll dive in, and some people will do a little, right in the moment training. So we'll pull up some zip codes, we'll pull up some people and look for partners for clothing and mattresses, maybe non-ferrous metal that's a better price than what you're currently getting, electronics, right? Some of the main places that we can keep things out of the landfill. We're going to dig into that. We'll break for lunch, and after that, we're going to dig into operations. I'm going to show you how we run operations here, and I'm going to challenge you to take what your current operations are, look at our operations, and where are there gaps, and what can you do, right? So you can have some end-of-year goals to fill in those gaps. From there, we'll do Q&A. That's going to be an opportunity to be free for all, right? Ask me anything and everything. You've already made the time commitment to come all the way up here. Let's have some real conversations. I guarantee you the question that you have that you want answered, somebody else has that same question. So it'll give us an opportunity to have a no shit conversation. This is, again, open to all independently owned junk removal companies. If you're a franchise or you're a corporation or you've got a PE firm, we're going to treat it on a case-by-case basis because I'm going to be inclusive of the people I really enjoy, and I know they're going to get a lot out of it. And I also want to have some parameters because this is all about independent junk removal companies. We're going to limit this to 25 different individuals, right? So up to 2 people per company. That's it. We want to make this inclusive of the people that want to be here. So sign up now. Taylor already put the links in, or he's going to put the links in. Did he put the links in? He put the links in, right? So event invite, it's free. Register. If you're not going to make it, let us know. The goal is that we have our 25 head count sooner rather than later. We can start to look at our itineraries and make sure people are flying in. Last thing we want is someone to sign up and then decide week of they don't want to go. So October 21st, that's where we're going to cut everything off. We're going to have our 25 individuals to come up here, and we're going to have a great weekend. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'd love to answer them now, and I will answer them in the next couple of weeks. I've had about a dozen people email me, hey, what's the dates? Basic things. So basically everything I covered now today is now covered in the podcast. It's also covered in the event. So we're good there. All right. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I was on a panel discussion for Marketplace Wisconsin. Marketplace Wisconsin is a part of Wisconsin Workforce Development. And what they do is they highlight minority, veteran, and woman-owned businesses so there's more economic opportunities for these businesses. And I was on a panel representing the token veterans of the great state of Wisconsin. And one of the questions they asked me was, what is a must-read or must-listen-to podcast? What's a gotta have it? And at the time, I said 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's still a must-read from my perspective. That's my go-to book. That's the book that really kicked off my life when it comes to self-development. Whenever I think of speakers, always goes to Les Brown. He's the one guy where I'm like, yep, that's my guy. Recently, I've known about Dan Sullivan for years. I've watched some of his stuff. Very passive, very on the outskirts. Recently, I read 10x is easier than 2x. And I'm going to do something today that you couldn't pay me enough money in grade school to do. I'm going to give us a book report on 10x is easier than 2x because I fell in love with this book. I read it over the last 3 weeks. 250 pages this book is. It took me about 2 minutes a page. So do the hillbilly math. About 500 minutes into this book. So 60 minutes in an hour, talk about 8.5 hours I put in this book. That's about right. Probably 8 to 10 hours. Book I'm reading right now, it's like 30 seconds a page. It's physically small or it's simple to digest. So I'm 8 to 10 hours into this book. Plus, I probably spend an hour a day reflecting on this book in addition to. And what it's a phenomenal book. So this now goes on. I have now 2 must-read books. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, and now 10x is easier than 2x. So the whole premise behind this book is by doing more of something, that's all we end up doing. We're doing more, or we end up doing different. And yet the same effort or even more effort is put in, and the result is maybe double, never 10x, right? And so one of the simplest things they talk about is how do we get to Oregon, right? How do we get out west? Because 150 years ago, right? 100, let's call it almost 200 years ago, Lewis and Clark walked, right? And then we had wagons, and then we had a train, and then we had cars. And now what used to take months takes a matter of a few hours, right? The task is the exact same. Get west, right? Oregon Trail. Get to Oregon. The task is the same. And yet if we 2x'd, right, we would just get more animals to pull the wagons. We would get bigger wagons. Maybe we make the road slightly bigger for the wagons because we're only doubling our effort by doing the same thing. And yet, no, let's look at the problem from another perspective. And now we're going to fly a plane. So that's a very large idea. And yet it can apply to junk removal companies all day, every day. So the first thing he says is you got to be hyper-focused. What are the things that you are doing that are 2x and not 10x? And when you look at something that's 2x, right, typically you're going to spend 80% of your time doing 2x functions, if not more. Right, this old 80-20 principle. Right, focus on the 20 because that's going to give you the greatest results. And yet we get caught into the 80. And what ends up happening is this word busy. I do things that make me busy because I am all important. I answer all the phone calls. I answer all the emails. I do all the jobs. I go to all the networking events. Well, something's got to give eventually in order for you to 10x. And 10x isn't merely you're going to get 10 times the result. It's the idea that you get 10 times the result of your time. And it's about qualitative time, not quantitative time. Qualitative time is kairos time. This idea that when I put forth effort, I'm not measuring time linearly. I'm measuring the effort I put in the result. Versus chronos time, these are both Greek things, versus chronos time, which is very linear. I put an hour in, this is what I get in an hour. If I pay someone an hour, this is what they get done in an hour. Very linear time. So Kairos time is like more like this. I'm going to pay someone, right, $20 an hour because for $20, I'm going to free up my time. And the quality of value and the quality of work and the quality of vision I can produce when my time is free, not the hour, when my time is free, when I'm no longer focusing on that, is significantly greater. And Hillbilly Math says, right, you're worth $200 an hour all day for your business. So the math does check out 10x. So first thing we need to do is identify what are those things within your business that you can be that can be delegated. So I talk about it here often, right? Automate, eliminate, delegate. Right? And say, there's things I can't eliminate. Yes, there are. I guarantee you there's things you can eliminate. So you can do a 15-minute time study. Take 2 weeks of your life, put down 15 minutes intervals. What were you doing in those times? What of those things can you automate, delegate, or eliminate? Someone say, well, I can't delegate because I need somebody. Okay. So the constraint here is getting somebody else to do the thing. Okay. Hire the person. What does it look like? What's the job description? You can do it, right? There are constraints. Well, what do you need to do to overcome those constraints, those barriers? That's your job as a business owner. So figure that out, right? In junk removal, we often say, I got to get off the truck, right? And I even saw earlier today in one of the junk removal groups, it was like, hey, I worked really hard to get off the truck, and now I don't know what to do to keep myself busy. Okay, great. So you went from 80-20, you hire somebody to do the 80%, and now you freed up your time. You still have this linear thinking and this, what do I have to do to keep myself busy? Well, don't be busy. Right? So then that comes down to the next thing. What is your unique ability? What is it that only you and your unique ability can do? Because when you're in Chronos time, when you're in these 1 hour blocks, you're a manager. You're managing processes, you're managing people, you're managing expectations. While when you're in Kairos time, you're a maker. You're making shit happen. You got the vision to see what is yet to come. You got the vision to say, hey, I'm going to make my company into that. Okay, I got off the truck. How do I get to 4 trucks? How do I get to a warehouse? How do I get to a second location? How do I get to sell someday so that I can retire and live on the fucking beach? Right? That's what makers do. They make shit happen because they free up their time. They talk about the 4 freedoms in this book: freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, freedom of purpose. When you have your 4 freedoms, or when you have time and you no longer look at time as linear, but time is this abstract, infinite amount of time, now you have the freedom of time. You make enough money where you have the freedom of money. It's not a dollar amount. It's about being wealthy. It's about being able to do what you want with the money you have. Freedom of relationship. You choose who's going to be in your life. We often talk about firing customers. That's what this directly is about. Some of your best customers from a revenue standpoint are the biggest pain in the asses. When you have freedom of relationship, you can choose to fire those customers. Also, employees. I have definitely been in the spot where I've had employees where they were what Simon Sinek calls the highest performing, most toxic individual. So they made a lot of revenue for the business, and yet they were the office asshole. They were the person you had to treat with special gloves. They were the person that came in hung over and you couldn't talk too loud. Otherwise, you pissed them off. And you couldn't afford for them to leave because they're the ones that produce the most revenue and they got the most jobs done. And they knew where all the tools were and share information with other people. When you have freedom from a relationship, you no longer need those people and you get to choose who you want to be around. That's another highlight in this book. It talks about the wants. This is something I learned. I've often lived in a need-based life. I need to do this so I can do that. I need to make this money so I can buy this. I need to drive here so I can do that. And it goes into that whole have to mindset. In my book, Words Fucking Matter, I talk about Dr. Bill Crawford. And one of my favorite quotes of all times that he said, and I put it in my books, it's so good, is there's only 3 things in this world you have to do. You have to be born, you have to die, and in between, you have to live. Everything else is a choice. When I first started writing my book, I was talking about things that I admire, I desire, and I require. And I put them as things that I liked, I wanted, and I needed. And I started to get into Maslow's hierarchy of needs and go down this whole rabbit hole of need. And I realized, well, hold on. When I live a need-based life, I'm living for somebody else. I'm living for this idea that I cannot achieve more. And as soon as I start living a want-based life, I get to decide the parameters. I get to say the boundaries. How does that reflect on increment? Well, hey, I want to get off the truck. Hey, I want to make 6 figures. Hey, I want to make 7 figures. Hey, I want to take a vacation. Hey, I want to take a 6-week sabbatical. Hey, I want to sell my business. These are all wants. When you start thinking 10x, you get to decide your wants. You write them down right there on my board. I have my wants. I look at them every day and I say to myself, self, this is what I want. How do I get there? And I'm standing here for you today because one of my wants is to share the stage with Jordan Peterson. I also want to get gigs in 2025. I want to book $50,000 worth of gigs in 2025. And so how do I achieve that today? Well, I'm doing the podcast. It's Tuesday, and I can give myself the excuse, well, it's Tuesday. The podcast normally comes on a Monday. I'm not going to do it this week because I have an excuse to free up an hour of my time. Nope. I'm doing the podcast because I have meaningful Mondays, and meaningful Monday turned into meaningful Tuesday this week. I am choosing to stand up because I know I project better. I have better energy. I have better enthusiasm when I stand up. So now I'm choosing to do what I want. One of the things I took away from this book is I've historically for years said, I do what I want. And now I've changed that slightly. Now I say, I only do what I want. When I look at my calendar, when I go to events, when I find myself on my phone flipping through Facebook, searching for another hit of dopamine, I realize I'm not living in the place I want to live. I'm not doing what I want. I'm here because I need to be here. And as soon as I feel the need to be here, I say, okay, I do not want to be here. right? And I still have responsibilities. I want to run a business. I want to be successful. I want to have freedom of time and money and relationships and purpose. Okay. Well, then I want to hire someone to come here because the company wants to be here, because the company wants to grow. The company wants to employ people here locally. Well, let's find these two things. All right. I have a great business development manager that loves hanging out at golf courses all day. He loves talking to people at 7:30 in the morning. He loves going to business after fives. Great. I have something he wants. I give it to him. And another theme in the book, 10X, is about buyer relationship. I'm not selling it to him. He's not selling me what he's got. We're both buying. He's buying what I got. I'm buying what he's got. Let me tell you, I can pay you to go do something so that I can have my freedom of time. How much? Where do I send the check? Y'all want Venmo or Zello? I don't care. Because freedom of time, to me, I can have a transactional want. I want to hire people. I want to have freedom of time. He wants to work and he wants to go do these things. Well, that's a great idea. So for you, maybe you love the golf courses. Maybe you want to golf every day. Maybe you love going to networking events, right? When we look at EOS has things in 4 buckets. It is the things that you love that you're great at. Dan Sullivan would call that your unique ability. There's the things that you like doing that you're good at. There's things that you don't like doing that you're good at. And there's things that you hate doing that you're bad at. I did a time study 6 months ago and I realized I had one 15-minute period in my entire week that was the things I hated doing. Now, that took years to get there. I'd say probably back in the day, a quarter of my day or better was, right? Best thing I did, talks about in this book, executive assistant. Go get you a virtual assistant, 20 hours a month, and free up your life. That's one of the best things I ever did. My 15 minutes of things that I don't like doing, that I hate doing, was talking to vendors. Not my favorite thing to do. I'm on a Zoom call and I'm getting shitty with vendors. So I don't do them anymore. I have other people manage relationships with our outside vendors. It's not my thing. I love operations. I love figuring things out. I like doing things strategically. I love casting the vision. I like having conversations with our employees out in the field. Okay, those are the things I want to do. That's where I'm going to put my energy. That is my unique ability. Those are the things that I love doing, that I'm great at. Those are the things that only I can do within this business. Somebody else can answer the phone, go to the networking events, do the marketing, post the things on social media, take the pictures, write the copy, pick up the phone, follow up on the emails, book the jobs, facilitate the jobs, do the jobs, take the couches out of the basement, bill the customer, hand them a thank you card, get a 5-star review, get the picture, put the yard sign out, put out the door hangers, come back here, unload the trucks, close up the building, wrap up the day. Those are a lot of things that other people want to do, and I want to pay them to do that. So here in Junkin, we'll figure out, right, your wants versus your needs. You can make it very, very simple. Want versus need. Also, this talks about, right, you get to choose your minimum standards. So I talk about that with boundaries, right? Again, want. What do you want to do? You get to choose that. This chapter is all about, well, we jumped into wants, right? Your intrinsic wants, right? What are things you want to do that are intrinsically within you? So in life, there's 2 types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation and instrumental motivation. I learned about this quite a bit at mass resiliency training. The Army puts that on, based on research by the University of Pennsylvania. And it talks about intrinsic motivation versus instrumental motivation. Instrumental motivation is carrot and stick. I do this, I get that. Intrinsic motivation is I want to do this. When I do this, I feel fulfilled. When I do this, I am living my best life. When I do this, I know I'm making an impact, right? And you hit Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that self-actualization. A couple months ago, I talked about closing down the podcast. Casey, who was a visionary for the podcast, left the podcast. And I said, okay, a couple months ago, I said here on the show, hey, as long as I have guests, I will do the podcast. And then I got people who are like, oh, yeah, I'll be a guest. Oh, you should have this person, or you need to have this person as a guest. Need what? I want this person to be a guest. See, we did some real-time language reassessment. All right, I want this person as a guest, right? Let me make this introduction. Here we go. And then this last week, I thought, okay, I can easily go a week without the podcast. And no, I want to do the podcast. I want to share what I learned about in 10X. I'm so excited about this book I told my guys earlier this year, I'm getting this. Everyone's getting this for Christmas. This is with their Christmas gift. I may buy it early or buy it sooner than that. Right. And I want to have a library down in our conference room with some of the books that I consider to be essential reading. So anybody in our company, people that come facilitate or that visit the facility can come by, see the books that we read. I'll give them the copies. Right. That's wealthy. I'm wealthy enough to pass on knowledge to others. Right. Because I get to choose my wants. Right. Next thing, chapters, uncover your 10x past to clarify your future. Here's the beautiful thing about 10x. You've already done it. You've done it at several iterations throughout your life. At some point, you went from crapping your pants and crawling to walking and using the potty, right? All the way through, you went from being of the employee, working for somebody else, to now working for yourself. You went from not having the slightest clue how to run a company to having the slightest clue to running a company. All because you got out of your comfort zone. You chose to 10x your life. So this book talks about the gap in the game. The gap in the game is one of the other books leading up to. So the 3 books in series is the gap in the game, who, not how, and then 10x is easier than 2x. The gap in the game focuses on what you have done so far and how you did it and how you're going to repeat it versus the gap, which is where do I want to be and where am I at now? And oh my God, look at how scary and crazy and weird and all this shit I got to deal with. No, the gap in the gain. The gain is where we set our focus. We say to ourselves, okay. That's why I tell people, do 100 jobs. When I say, hey, I've done 10 jobs. I love this junk removal thing. Cool. You done? 10. Go do another 10. You already did the first 10, do another 10. And then do another 10. And before you know it, you got 100. And once you do 100, go for 1,000. Figure out, what did you do right on those first 10? What got you? Okay, let's focus. Let's put all our energy on what we did right those first 10 jobs. Let's do more of that. Right? And when you focus on the things you're doing right, often the things that you're doing wrong dissipate. It's no different than employees. Catch your employees doing something right. When you take the time to highlight what your employees are doing right, they're going to do more of it. And you coach them for the right behaviors, and the wrong behaviors will dissipate. So with you, focus on the gain. What have you done so far? Okay, you want to get here? Okay. So for me, I want to book speaking gigs. All right. I booked some speaking gigs. What went right? How do I double down the right to get more gigs? Same with you in junk removal. Okay, you got yourself off the truck. You're running a truck. You got one truck, one crew going. What's going right? How do I double that? How do I get a second truck running? How do I do it? It took me a year to get the first truck. How do I get the next truck up and functional in 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever your training program is? Oh, you don't have a training program? Okay. We've been talking about this for years on the podcast. Document. Document the things you did right along the way. Look at it and then put it into a plan. You've already done the work. You've already done the things right. You're already in business, right? Some weeks we celebrate, hey, we're still in business. There's weeks to this day, it's 8 years later, where I look back, I say, okay, we made payroll. That's what we did this week. Because there was weeks years ago where making payroll wasn't always something we did with ease. And so focusing on the gain, what have you done so far? Take 3 or 4 times in your life and look at, how did I go from here to there? Look back at your life 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. Look back at where you were and where you are now. Would you have been jealous of yourself back then if you were where you're at right now? And now imagine where you're going to be in 2 months from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. By applying those same principles that got you where you're at. All of a sudden, you start focusing on what you can do. You start focusing on the gain and not the gap. You focus on what you can, not what you can't. The gap in the gain. Gap in the gain is the first book, focusing on. Second book is who, not how, right? Find the right people. Let them figure it out. And then the third book here is 10x is easier than 2x. Oh, this is a good one. All right. Oh, I love this chapter. Okay. I skipped a chapter somehow. I think I covered it all. I know. I'm covering the things I want to. I'm covering the things that pop in my mind. All right. Chapter 5, take 150 free days per year. So he talks about this, and he uses, I'm going to use the first analogy he uses here. He talks about actors and actresses, how they have performance days, practice days, and rejuvenation days. When I sit down with people, the other book I'm currently writing is called Numbers Fucking Matter. And one of the first things I talk to people about is how much money do you want to make? How many weeks a year do you want to work? Right? We plan it out. He talks in this book how they plan out, and he's been planning out for years, how many days off, what days off they are. He puts in artificial constraints so that he can be more focused during his performance days. So let's look at an athlete. Let's take the NFL, right? Season kicks off. Packers, Eagles, in Brazil, maybe. Now they're talking about air quality issues, whatever, right? Football season kicks off. Football season is 17 games, right? Maybe 2 or 3 playoff games, right? 4 if everything goes right. Those players take days, right? That Monday after the game, they're not practicing. It's a rejuvenation day. They're down. They're resting their bodies. They're resting their minds. They're resting their souls. And then they have practice days, and then they have game days. An NFL player is playing 17, maybe 20 games a year, either 3 or preseason or 3 playoff games, right? They have 20 days a year where they need to perform. Actors and actresses all the same, right? They have a finite number of days where they need to perform. In order for them to perform at the highest level, they need days in between to rest. They need days in between to practice. And as a business owner, this is your opportunity. I've talked about it for years. Years ago, I started taking Sundays off. I do not work Sundays. I go to the beach on Sundays. That's my sanctuary. I was at the beach, Saturday this weekend, because I go to the beach when the weather is nice. I'm going to the beach this week when I'm down doing practice, or actually rejuvenation. I leave tomorrow morning for 4 days of rejuvenation down in Key West, business retreat, right? That is my scheduled rejuvenation time. Even back when I first started, I took off Sundays to give myself 1 day to let my brain rest, to let that muscle recover. And then I started taking off Saturdays. I remember I was maybe a year and a half into business, and someone said, what's the best thing going in your business right now? And I said, I slept in on a Saturday because I had the phones for the first year, or I would be in the office every day. And finally, I got to a point where I said, okay, I'll work on Saturday. I don't want to be at work at 7 a.m. Right? So what do I need to do? Well, I gave the phone to an operations guy. He answered the phone on Saturdays. Well, then I wanted to train him. I wanted him to get up to speed. I wanted the company to be successful, right? Because sleeping in on a Saturday trumped all the things. It allowed me to do all the things I wanted to do because I had alignment. And now I've structured my week very, very simple. I have meaningful Mondays. Monday, I do all the meetings. I do my podcast. I do everything that's meaningful that I do every week that I have 100% control over. I go to counseling every other Monday. I have my meetings. I have my podcast. That's my Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've broken down. I used to have 1 hour blocks of managerial time, and now I've broken it down to 2 or 3 blocks a day of 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes it's an AM and a PM with a lunch in between, and that's it. And I give myself the 2 or 3 hours so I can work on one thing and be fully invested into that thing so I can bring my unique ability in. I do business coaching for different businesses because when I learn about other businesses, I inevitably see things from my perspective that's going to support their business. And I also start to see my business from another perspective. Those are my practice days. So I build in my days to perform. On Monday, here I am. This is my stage. This is my arena. This is my audience. This is my performance. This is the 1 hour a week out of 168 hours that I get to perform in the junk removal space. And for the next 167 hours, I'm going to schedule in some time to practice. I'm going to talk to other junk removal companies. I'm going to plan out our junk removal weekend. So on October 25th and 26th, I can perform and be at peak performance. He uses perform, practice, and rejuvenation because this came from the theater, and he changes it into focus days. Those are your performance days. Buffer days. Those are your prep days or practice days. And then finally, free days. So Saturday, Sunday are my free days. I take that time to rest my mind, body, and soul. This last week, I went to the beach on Saturday. I worked on the farm on Sunday. Focus days. Here I am. Focused. I'm in performance. I got my book. We're doing a book report and talk about junk removal, right? And then I have my preparation days and my organization days. The days that I'm working so that when I get in front of an audience, I'm ready to take on the world. The same is with you. Look at what you do. There are days where you need to be a manager. There are days where you need to manage your business, or hours in which you need to manage your business. The goal is you find those 80% of your time that you're doing busy work. Busy is a shit word. When you're doing busy work, when you're performing tasks, managing processes, managing people where somebody else can do it, you find a way to eliminate, delegate, and automate those days and those times. Last week, after reading this book, I no longer check emails during the day. That sounds scary. Now, my executive assistant checks my emails throughout the day. At 4:30, she sends me a wrap-up email. Here are the emails you need to address. Earlier today, I saw I had 29 emails. I get twitchy if it's above 10. I have 29 unread emails. Well, I had delegated this responsibility to Emmy. I have an automation. She's going to send me an email, and between 5 and 6, I will spend 1 hour taking care of all the emails for the day. And when I set aside that 1 hour, ends up being about 15, 20 minutes. That's how much time I need or I want, right, to take care of emails. The first day was like 2 hours. Well, here are all the things that someone else can answer. Here are the things I'm going to pass off. Here are the emails that we can delete because I don't need to read them. I don't want to. Forget need. I don't want to read them. Last chapter talks about the self-managing company. And this is the goal that most of us have as an entrepreneur, right? We want to own our business. We do not want our business to own us. So how do we create a self-managing company? This is his argument. There are 4 types of businesses. Where am I at? I'll just go from here. All right. Level 1 entrepreneurs. These are the ones that are in the weeds all day, every day. They are an entrepreneur. This is the business is running you. You're focusing on the gap more than you're focusing on the gain. So to go from level 1 entrepreneur to level 2 entrepreneur, you need to level 1 entrepreneur are being rugged. That's what he uses. Rugged individual who either does everything themselves or micromanages the few who's they have. So they might have hired the who's, and yet they're not letting the who's do the what yet. Level 2 entrepreneur is where you've evolved beyond the how focused, now you're who focused. Rugged individual to who focused leadership, applying who, not how, in all areas of life and business. This is where I see a lot of us struggle here in this space. You want to tighten up your business. You want to micromanage everything. You either want to do it or you want to manage it. The book talks about this, and I'm living proof of this. Get out of the fucking way. Take a day, take an hour, take a vacation. What you'll see, you'll be able to see what your team is capable of. And moreover, your team will be able to see what they're capable of. Within our first year of business, I was given orders to go to a military school for 3 weeks. I told our then operations officer, Zell, he had 87 days to learn my job. This was in January. I left in April. During the 3 weeks I was gone, the first week the place was on fire. I was on the phone constantly and everything went to shit. The second week, they figured it out and they wanted or needed me a little bit. By the third week, I didn't need to come back. They had it all figured out. And during those 3 weeks, they also landed the largest project to date that our company had done. And it was the largest project we did for the first 5 years. So the company flourished without me. As an owner, it's my job as the visionary to build the ship. It's also my responsibility to hire the who's, not the what. It's my job for them to run the ship. I get to build it. I get to set course and decide that's the direction we're going. And beyond that, I get to sit back and watch them run this ship, this company, as a self-managing company that I was part of building. And I allow them to make modifications. And I put processes in place so that they can make the ship even better than I originally built it. To go from a level 2 to a level 3 entrepreneur is going from level 2 an entrepreneur of being the leader of the who, not the how, to level 3 entrepreneur means that you've replaced yourself with better fitting leaders to run your self-managing company. Hire a new captain to run the ship. Hire the guys, the fucking riggers, the paddlers, the gunmen, the fucking navigator, right? Hire the people, and chances are they are better than you at doing the thing. Put your ego aside. your focus on your focus needs to be your focus. How do I say? When your focus is on the 20%, you can take a step back. You can look at things from 30,000 feet. You can look at things from another boat and start to figure out what your company needs to move forward. Growing from level 3 entrepreneur to level 4, growing from 3 entrepreneur of having a self-managing company to level 4 entrepreneurship means that everything happens around you, including your business. Operates as a self-multiplying unique ability teamwork. In self-multiplying unique ability teamwork, all individuals are encouraged to continually and autonomously refine their roles down to their 20%. Once you have that level 3 self-managing company, now you look at your entire team and say, okay, entire team, what is your unique 20%? What situations, processes do we get to create so that you can be in your unique 20% majority of your time? And when you do that, when all levels of your business are operating in their unique 20%, then you have those freedoms we talked about earlier, the freedom of time, the freedom of money, the freedom of relationships, and the freedom of purpose. I highly encourage everybody here on the Trash Talk Business Podcast to get out of the day-to-day, to get out of the grind that is, and instead get into working on yourself, get into your unique ability, get into why you got into this thing in the first place. What do you want out of your business? You get to decide what you want. You get to decide the boundaries. You get to set the course of how you're going to get there. Focus on the gains. Focus on what you've done before, what you've done right, and what you're going to do again. Focus on the who's. Who do you need to hire? Right people, right seats. Develop the seat. What does the seat look like? Who fits into the seat? And then start to look at your company. How do I self-manage this? How do I get all the who's to run the business day to day? When you do that, you'll be able to live the life that you want to live. You'll be able to run your business instead of your business running you. I'm excited to be part of your journey here on the Trash Talk Business Podcast. I'm excited to see you again next week. We got a guest coming up. I have no idea who it is offhand. I know we have one. Taylor might tell me. Taylor's going to come in here in like 7 seconds and teach me. Again, October 25th and 26th, we're going to have our recycling weekend. Taylor's late. Maybe let's check my phone. 25th and 26th. And from there, Connor Young. How do we know Connor Young? Hi. All right. My guys are looking for me. Connor Young next week. That's it. All right. So I'm excited to be part of your junk removal journey. I thank you for giving your time this week. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the Trash Talk Business Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Tap subscribe or follow to get the latest episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and tell a friend to listen. To learn more, visit trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. Bye now.